Righto, so I'm just putting a few bits and pieces back on. The rear bumper bar, gave it a polish up. It was in horrible condition when I got the car. I gave it a clean up initially and it looked better, and now I've given it more of a polish up. That's about as good as it's ever going to look. And I've just been polishing the stainless steel on the grille. I didn't show you what it looked like before, but previous videos will show it, so I might put something up there. But what I'm about to do is mask off all the stainless, and then I will Scotch-Brite all this. It's meant to be silver and black. I'm going to paint the whole lot black. So there'll be stainless, and then there'll be black. And then that will sit, obviously, at the front of the car. I'm not going to treat you that silly. So that'll go there. So I need to decide whether I keep it yellow behind there or black. Normally I go black, but we'll see what yellow looks like. I'll get this prepped, we'll worry about that later. Okay, got that all masked up. I'll just use some Scotch-Brite now, and I'll go through and give these bits a clean up. And I'll give them a clean with some glass cleaner or something like that. And then I'm just going to use some rattle can black paint on there, and I reckon that'll look $1,000,000. So I'll show you when it's done. Righto, let's see how this has come up. Sweet. So a couple of days later, the satin effect on the paint has come up really well, and I'm new to this stuff, but the orange peel, there's orange peel there, but it is very, very minor. It seems to have drawn back into itself. And even the paint runs, they're still there, but even the paint runs have drawn into themselves and shrunk a bit. So, you know, I'll have to still go through and paint correct them and so on, but I am so happy with the way this looks. Interestingly, the roof almost has a pearl effect to it, whereas this is very satin. So, yeah, I'm very happy with it. So what I'm doing at the moment is I am preparing the doors. So I'd already sanded this one up. So this is the right hand side door, and it's pretty much ready to go. A few bits in bare metal, same sort of thing. I'll have to go through, I'll double check it, but I'll go through and I'll spot spray it and everything that you saw me do with the car, so I won't repeat all that. But it's pretty good. There is, I think when I look down it, there's got to be a slight bulge just there and a slight low there. I've put some body filler there, but it's going to have to be how it is because I'm not going to go any further with it. Got to draw a line somewhere. Working on this door, this is the left-hand door, and what I have got, it's all good. So this is the one, if you remember, go back a few videos, I replaced the corner here, did a little repair over there. Can't actually remember what else I did to it. But what you can see, I've sanded this all back. This is only in 240 at the moment. It will go down to 320. Can't remember, I think I've already done the other one in 320, and I'll move along to the inside of the tailgate shortly. But what you might be able to see is this spot here. I've sanded everything. I'm not reaching that. There's a little dent there. And the same thing here. In fact, there's a dent through here, right on this body line, and it sort of goes in there and bulges out here. And I'm not going to try and play with it, but what I can guarantee is when I look down the side of the car, there's going to be this gentle undulation there. It's deep enough that I can feel it, and it's deep enough that without excessive pressure on this block, when I go along, I'm not reaching it. So I could get in there and I could get stuck in and sand it down, but that's not the idea. So what I'm going to do is this spot and this spot, I'm going to rough them up out to a perimeter, like out here somewhere. I'm going to rough them up with some 40 grit, and then I'll knock it down to 80 grit. So 40 just to take the strain off quickly, and then 80 grit. Then I'm going to make up some glaze putty with my body filler with extra fiberglass resin in it, and I'll work that out, and I'm hoping I can get it in one hit, but probably won't. So what you'll see is that, I'm not going to show the process, but it's going to end up sort of about here. I'm going to tape the body line. I don't want to go past the body line. Up there I'm happy with somewhat. I'll tape it, don't want body filler on there. I'll just work below that. That seems good. This seems to be sunken a little bit. Over here, same thing. That's what I'm going to do. I'll get that in body filler and I will sand it and we will see how that comes up. As I said, then we'll move along to the inside of this. I still have not redone the outside after doing the repairs there. Naughty, pardon me, naughty of me. It's been sitting like that for a while. And I still have not done the bonnet. Little rust repair to do on that, some work. So that is going to be prepared. That's going to be sanded. The other side's going to be double checked. And when I re-epoxy that side, I will have that ready at the same time. And I will do it. I'll have to do both sides, I guess. And I think that's it. Okay. Let's do whatever I just said I was going to do. Let's do some body filler. I've decided I'm going to do right the way from about here through to there. Because I was going to do a patch here, which will always end up about that big. I was going to do a patch here, which will always end up about this big. So I think I'm going to make life easier for myself, and I'm going to go from about here right the way through to there. Righto. Well, I don't know what you'd like to listen to when you're working on cars. I have a bit of a variety, but today I've been listening to Led Zeppelin. Spotify is my friend. I've got a good speaker here, and I crank it up and get going. Depends what mood I'm in as to what I listen to on any day. I guess it's like everyone. So I've got this mixed up. It is pretty good. It's my body filler that already has additional fiberglass resin mixed to it, because it just makes it easy to work with. And I've added some more to it to try to create a nice fluid glazing putty. So as I said, I'm going into a bigger area than what I actually even need to, just so I can make sure that I can blend it out. You know what, even though I went into that spiel about that painting thing that I said I was going to use, I'm not going to, because quite frankly I think this is going on pretty well without the aid of a tool that I just spent 25 minutes cleaning up and cut my finger twice in the process of doing. You can see the masking tape there is preventing the body filler from going onto the area that I don't want it to go onto. Don't need to take it down any lower than what I have. Just going to cut this bottom edge off. And I'm going to leave that there, because I don't think I need to play around with it anymore. Okay, so a few minutes later, that's setting up nicely. I was just cleaning my spatula and I can tell you it's setting up. I just want to show you something. I'm going to take you down this end. So I just use multi-purpose thinners on a rag to clean up, and I've said it before but I'll say it again. Your rag, you got something like this, a rag with thinners, solvent or something on it. Don't put it in the bin, don't leave it in a scrunched up pile. Just put it something like that and allow it to dry out. Otherwise it can catch on fire. And this is the evidence also, I guess it's related. This is the body filler. This is onion board, specifically for mixing body filler on. It's worth getting. You just tear each page off. But what I want to show you is that this here, this is a digital thermometer. I'm going to just shoot, say, the bench just there. In Celsius, it's 23 degrees. I'll tell you about what that is in Fahrenheit in a minute. If I go to here, the chunk, 26 degrees. If I go to this point here, well, you probably can't see it, so I'll go here. The paper, 25 degrees. That lump, 25 degrees. This part here, 47 degrees, 35 degrees. I can feel it on the back of the paper. So I'll tell you what that is in a minute in Fahrenheit, 45. So this here, couple of things. You go screwing that up and putting it in the bin, it could catch on fire, no matter what you're using, cardboard or whatever. But if you put a lot of body filler onto a body panel, it can have that much heat that it can actually buckle the panel. So that's why, one of the reasons why it needs to be done in thin layers. Now, to give you a bit of an idea on Mr. Thermometer up here, what have we got? I said about 45 degrees Celsius. 45 degrees Celsius is about 110 degrees, to give you an idea. So yeah, if that was the weather, you would be saying that's stinking hot. So, and I can tell you this had cooled down. It actually had cooled down in the time that I was holding it, and it's cooled down again. So 34 degrees, 32, 30. So it's cooling down. But it was hotter. I reckon, I didn't get thermometer onto it in time, but I reckon it was probably, if we had 45 degrees, I think I saw at one stage about 55 degrees on it. So 55 degrees Celsius is, I don't know, up around 120 degrees. Just something to bear in mind for those reasons. Anyway, let's go and knock this stuff down, because I reckon it's ready to sand. Okay, so what I did there was I applied that body filler, sanded it back down. I started off with 36 grit on my longboard, speed file, and then I went down to 120 grit on this hand block, and then I buzzed over it with 320. And in that process, I realised that I'm going to need to put more epoxy on this, so I went back and I went back over it with 240. So I went to a coarser paper again. I'll be happy that 240. Normally I go to 80 when I'm going to epoxy, but I think I'm going to leave it in 240, and I'll go over it and I'll apply some new epoxy. I'm not going to paint the top of the door, nothing wrong with it, doesn't need sanding. So I'll take my tape off and I'll remask it, and then when I do the other epoxy on the tailgate and some other areas, then I will go through and I'll mask the top of the door up. I'll just epoxy up to that line, and then I'll sand this back down again. But I'm happy with the result. Now, truth be told, it's not going to be absolutely dead flat, but it's not going to have that sunken bit in it now. So the whole thing still has a little bit of a wave through here, and as I said earlier, that's something I'm prepared to live with, but it hasn't got that dent in it here and that dent in it there now. That didn't take very long, and I think it's worth doing. Okay, so I've just run a new masking line along there, and I'm just going to cover the top of the door. And you might think it's silly to mask this part up when I'm painting that, but masking, I mean, painting is just, what am I trying to say? Sanding epoxy primer is just so much fun, not that I don't want to do that part again, because there's a little bit of detailed work here. So I've got this, and if I haven't shown you before, I bought this by accident, and I thought this was a big 1.8 metre roll, but it's just, like, I think it's for, I don't know, for automotive, tape masking film. It's only a foot wide, or 330 mil. So I'm just going to tape it onto here, down to there. Perfect. Bought it by accident, not the size I wanted, but pretty sure that it'll be right. So it'll be twice as wide as what I roll out. See how well I do with this wearing gloves. I'm just going to go along here. My blue line is my accurate line, and this is just where I'm going to. Not too long, but that's okay. Bam, bada boom, bada bing. Pop that on there. Fold that back. Tape it down, and we're ready. Simple as that. I'm just about to get this Datsun bonnet ready for epoxy primer. The paint on it is, best to say, atrocious, and I think it's got a couple of dents in it. So the best thing I can do is completely burn this thing back. I'm not going to paint strip it, that is an option. I'm just going to use 36 grit on my dual action orbital. So I'm going to cook through that, and then the back, I guess I'll do the same. So let's get into that. So what you've just watched me do is go over this entire bonnet with 40 grit on the DA. I think I went through 3 pieces of that. I have to admit it didn't chew the paint off as quite as much as I thought. I thought the paint was just going to fall off. It's definitely in poor condition, but it didn't fall off. So what's remaining is actually holding tight, so I'm okay with that. Then I went over it just quickly. I buzzed it with 80 grit just to take it down to a smoother surface. Now what I'm doing, when I was doing that, and even before I was doing that, I suspected there was some dents. Just unplug my air hose. Stop sitting. So what I'm doing to identify those dents is I'm using imperfection sanding guide, or otherwise known as proof coat. This is a dust. Basically, you saw me powder it on. It's like a lady applying foundation or something to her face, I guess. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to sand over. Now I'm pretty sure there's a dent there, there's a dent there, and there's definitely a dent there. So I'm going to buzz over this again with 80 grit, because that's the grit that I want it finished in to apply epoxy on, and it's also the grit that I'll be happy to apply body filler on. And the fact that there's paint here, I'm happy to put body filler over the top of that. If there wasn't paint there, then I'd epoxy it, I'd body fill it, etc, etc. So essentially I'm saving a step out of that because the paint is holding true. So I'm going to buzz over it with 80 grit, and I think what it's going to show up is an imperfection here, or a dent here, and a dent over here. There may be others, we'll see. And then what I can do is I can fix those. And the idea is that you can use this at various stages, but the intention is that you get rid of all of it, and then you know that there's no imperfections. And if there is imperfections, you can see them and you can fix them. So let's buzz that off. So what we get from that, and you've got some strobing there, so it's not going to see for very long, but there's a dent right there. And I've got the torch there, and you can see here where the light's coming under the straight edge, so I can see just how big that dent is. And then over here, this one's going to be a bit of a challenge to fix, I think. Where are we? It's difficult for me to show you in the same way as I just did on the other one, but it's pretty obvious from up above. There's a dent just there. It looks pretty extreme, but it is absolutely minuscule, and it's going to be quite challenging to actually fill it and feather it without just making the issue appear somewhere else. But I'll give it a go. And there is the exact same thing over this side. Now I may try and push it out from inside. I can get to it from there, but my concerns are that I just create a raised dent rather than a sunken dent. Sunken dent I can fill. Like, it's that light. Actually, this one's a little bit deeper, but it's that light that the epoxy itself might be enough. But I will put some body filler on it, and I suspect I'm going to be body filling out to here somewhere. And you may already know what caused those. I can only guess. Closing the bonnet. Pushing down on it. So here's a lesson if you don't know. Don't push down on your bonnet. When you close your bonnet, keep it up about 300 mil, a foot, and just drop it. And that will not damage the bonnet and you won't get dents. So we have a dent there. We have a dent there. We've got a little one up the back there. And there were some other tiny little blemishes which I sanded out. Now I don't care how I get rid of them, but they were that light that I sanded them. Now I thought that might be the case with the one up the back here as well, but as I showed you, it's bigger than just what appears there. It's actually, the actual dent is about this big. So I'm going to clean this surface up, and I'm happy that I can just put some body filler straight over that. And you'll see quite a large patch over there, but most of it will come off. And the same here, this will be bigger than what it appears that it might need to be. And you can sort of see here, I guess, where I've touched and this is still through there. So I think this dent is actually maybe a bit longer than it even appears. But it'll be what it'll be. I'm going to go with the thought that I'm going to probably body fill from here and here right the way across, and then just try and sand it out. Now this here is a line, it's the point to the bonnet, and it just comes up. So I'll start behind that. That will have added a little bit of extra strength to the front of it as well. So I'm going to work in this area here. There is a little dent just there as well, so I'll pick that up at the same time. And then I'll do that part up the back. This does need some repair underneath it, but I have to say, this thing is in pretty good nick. There's actually a little dent on the front here, so I might have to just put a smear there as well. It'll run into something. There's a previous repair there. Pretty good, I've got to say, pretty good, happy with it. Well, I'm just about to go for dinner, for a bite to eat, so I'll probably resume this tomorrow. But what I'm doing, I've just got this masked up, as you can see, and I'm going to apply filler to that whole area, just a feather, but that way I think I'll be able to blend it out. I've just brought it to the edge of the body line here, and I won't continue it out past there. So I'm pretty sure that if I do that, I should be able to sand it, apply it and sand it out so that it just blends in nicely and fixes this and this. And then up the back there, I've also just prepped that. So I've gone through and I've hand rubbed it just with some 40 grit again, just to give it some really good key. I did that area, and I did an area about that big there, because I'm pretty sure that's what I'll need. So I think we'll get back into that tomorrow. Next day, just put some body filler on it. And so I had it masked across here. I body filled to that, just slightly higher than the tape. And I've sanded it back with my 36 grit on my speed file. And I also did this spot here. So what you can see, if you can see a little bit of a line there, means that that's going to show up. And the same thing through here, this straight line. If I can see a straight line, then I know that I haven't sanded it enough yet. So just here as well, a little bit there. But other than that, it's all feathered out. So you can see how thin this is. You can still see the impression of where the dent was, but there's now just the lightest little bit of body fill, and you can actually see that it's had to fill there, and it's had to fill, sort of out here. So I'm going to take a little bit more off, and I'll clean up this edge along here as well, so I can feel a little bit of a groove. Same there. So I'll go over it a little bit more with the 36, and then I'll run over it with some 80 grit, and then I think we will be ready for primer. Next day, birds are chirping. So I got some epoxy on the bonnet. You can see the scratches all through it. I don't see that as being a problem. That is part of the purpose of the epoxy. It's high fill. So I should be able to just sand that to a flat surface like this. And also did the tailgate. So same thing. And I did the bottom of that door. So I've unmasked it. So they're ready to sand. And I also, that did show up as a dent just there, you probably can't see it, but if I can't sand that out, I'll have to put some body filler in it. That is okay. Also went through my parts box for all the stuff for this, and found some headlights around, which was good, and some other bits and bobs, lights and so on, so given the chance, I'll start putting that back together. It's the little details that make the difference, so that's what I'm working on. Headlights around after some polish. Jump onto this bumper bar soon. It's not in the best of condition. Maybe it'll look better with a coat of paint, we'll see. But it's looking pretty crappy. Hopefully it'll come up alright. If I'm doing a full resto, I like to paint all the brackets and everything, and paint inside the bumper bar as well. Won't be doing that this time. But I'll go through and I'll give all the headlights and everything a clean up as well. the indicators, all this sort of stuff. It's amazing what just cleaning things like this up can do, the difference it looks. Well, personally, I reckon this is looking pretty good. So I've got those headlight surrounds on, got them both polished up, along with the grille. Probably still paint the centre of that badge. Put all new hardware across here, washers and screws, just because I think it matters. And I think that looks really good. So I'm just playing around with the indicators and parker lights, or marker lights, whatever you want to call them at the moment. So this goes in here, like that. And I've got the lenses there. I've polished those up, given them a clean. Now this mounts to the body through a bolt here or a screw, and same here. So that one and that one, then the lens goes into those ones. I had to pretty much just destroy everything to get this out, and I can't actually even remember what held them in. Whether there was a nut on the back. This had a hit, and I think it had been sort of improvised. So what I'm going to do is I've found some screws that fit through the holes, and this hole here, and also this hole here, and this hole here, I'm going to use some things called riv nuts. If you're not sure what riv nuts are, this is them. So this is a large one. These are metric ones that I've got. So this here, it's got a thread inside it, and then those splines on the outside. And the idea is that you use a special tool, this thing here, it's like a rivet gun, and you can change the heads, and they screw inside the riv nuts, and then you pull the handle and it squashes and holds in place. So I'll show you that in practice, and then you fit the bolt inside it. So I'll show you that in practice. Okay, I've got the riv nut loaded onto the gun. Now that goes in there, and I'll need to put it in the right hole. Goes in the bottom hole and the top hole. So that goes in there, and then I pull it and it flares back. Now I could do a test run, but I'm not going to. I'm going to sit a washer on the back of this. I'm going to have to hold it in place from the back, and the reason being, ideally that hole is pretty much the same size as this, but these holes are a little bit bigger, so you don't normally have to do this, but it is a little trick to know. So I'm going to put this through here, and then I'm going to get this little flat washer. I'm going to hold it on the back, and what will happen is that it will become clamped behind the body panel, so that the rivet doesn't pull through, the riv nut doesn't pull through the body. And fixed. Okay, we got a smiley face with all the lights done. Looking great. Okay, after some time, I have now sanded this bonnet back, hood, whatever you want to call it, with 240 and then 320. I started off using my blocks, but then I decided I would use the random orbital sander, dual action sander, which I did, and then I've gone over it with the blocks. And I also put my proof coat on it, that dust that I was using a little while ago, and it's come up really, really well. These marks just here, sorry, there's strobing from my vent fan again. These here, I thought maybe they were going to come up visibly. I put the dust on. They're actually, what these are, is there's scratches in the original paint, and the epoxy primer has gone in and filled those, which is the idea, but I just wanted to make sure. So it, yeah, they're completely disappeared. So I have got sand through spots, so I'll go through that with the 1K sand through primer. I haven't yet done the back of this hood, which I will do, but and I also need to do the welding underneath the latch under here, which I should have done before, and I'll probably be saying later on that I should have done it before doing all this so that I didn't burn the paint off, but I didn't do that. This door's ready to paint. No, same as that bonnet now. Still got to do the tailgate after re-priming it, and still got to do the bottom of this. we're making progress. Looking good. I'm really happy with the way that's come up because it was such a horrible mess before. We're making real progress. Got this tailgate sanded down and spot patched. I just got to go through and rub the spot patches with a Scotch-Brite, a scourer, which is what I've been doing soon after painting it so that it comes up ready to paint. Got both doors done, all looking great. Perfect, not, but pretty close, I have to say. Pretty happy with it. I'm just working on the bonnet at the moment, so the latch was broken, so I still need to prepare and prime and paint the underside. But the latch, this was broken out from here, and you can see the broken metal on the back of this. So that's supposed to bolt there and there. Funnily enough, it lines up with those other two holes as well, but then the latch wouldn't line up under the hood, so I'm not sure what they're for. So I'm just going to cut this piece out, put a patch in there, drill a hole in it, and I'll put a riv nut in there so that I can run that bolt in. It's got a little fracture around it here as well, so I'll fix that. And once I've done that, then prep it for paint and get it into primer at some stage. I've just very quickly made up a little patch, made it out of this socket to draw a circle. So that's it there. So I've put it in place, marked it with the Sharpie marker as close as I can to the edge, and now I'll go through and I'll cut on the inside of the black line, and that way, actually I'll cut around sort of through the middle of the black line. That'll give me an air gap for the weld. So I'll cut that out, put that in place. Bit of genuine Chevrolet GMC replacement metal, so it's about 4 times thicker than the Datsun. Let's go. All done. Got an M6 riv nut in there, so it sits a little bit proud, which will lift the bracket, the clip slightly up, but it doesn't matter, it'll still latch fine. So got those holes nicely centered, gives a bit of adjustment sideways once the bolts are in place. All good. Okay, so I've got the underside of the bonnet all prepared. I put some rust converter on some areas, and I'm going to mix up some epoxy and get it ready for epoxy. In the meantime, there's a chicken in my shed. Oh look, and a guinea fowl over there. So I got that here. It's a nice windy day, so perfect conditions. I got some soft edging happening here, soft masking, which is managing to blow up all around. Perfect conditions. So anyway, I've got a few spots of rust that were here, just converted after giving it a good sand back with down to 80 grit and a bit of Scotch-Brite as well. So yeah, I'll get this in epoxy. I've just got it soft edge masked around because I've already prepared the front of it, or the top of it, and I don't really want to have to be sanding off drift. So we'll get some epoxy mixed and get it on there. Short time later, got the masking taken off. Got 3 good solid coats of primer on there. If you look carefully, you'll still see all the sanding marks and everything, all the imperfections. I'm not concerned about that at all. This is the underside of the bonnet, let's face it, and I'm not going to paint the engine bay, so this will at least be body colour. But when I sand it, it'll come up a little bit better, but I'm absolutely not going to be trying to make this perfect. At the end of the day, if a person wanted to, they could put sound deadener in those triangles and just have the cross braces and the front of the bonnet exposed, and they actually came up pretty well anyway. So yeah, that's a good point to be at. I've got that done. All I've got to do is sand the back of that where I've just painted, and I can put colour on it. And this stuff, and I'm pretty sure that's it. I'm pretty sure. I've got to do white on the top of the tailgate when it comes to that, and then yellow everywhere else. And then I can put the panels back on and try not to scratch them, and we can move on to the next stage. But certainly getting there. Okay, as I've made no secret of, there's some pretty serious paint runs in this. So some little ones down here, there's some at the back of the car, there's a little drip there, the drip on the bottom of this guard. You might say, what's he talking about? No, well, if I get the right light, you'll really see here. I think you should be able to see that in front of the wheel arch. There is a major paint run through there. Like, it is 1.5 feet long. It's a horrible thing. So I'm going to start on some less obvious ones, and I'm going to try and wet sand it. I think I'm going to start with maybe 600 or 800 grit and then work my way down to, I don't know, maybe 1200, 15, 2000. I'm not really sure. I don't want it to be smoother than the rest of the car. Luckily, there's not a heap of orange peel in this paint, so it shouldn't be super obvious, but like, it's going to be hard to disguise that. If it means I've got to repaint that quarter, then so be it, but it can't hurt to try to paint correct it, and major correction, in the first place. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wet sand with various grits. Let's start off with some 600, I guess. I've got a foam block. I don't know if I need a harder block or not, but I'm going to try to do this in such a way so that I'm only touching the top of the paint. As I said, I'm going to start down here. But if this is too soft, I'll get a harder block. So, as I said, don't know what grit I should start with, but it really comes down to this, I think. As long as I don't hit the stuff that I want to leave behind with anything harsh, then it shouldn't matter what grit I use, just as long as I can sand those lines out when the time comes. So let's move the camera down to the bottom there a bit. I think I'll put you on hyperlapse and I'll let you know when I get there. Righto, so I practiced on the bottom of the sill here. I used a toothbrush with some paper on it, all 600 grit so far, and just a couple of things, a soft pad and then a harder pad. And I've stuck with the harder pad. But what I have done, I've gone up to this panel here, and you can see here where I've been sanding. I've got the run out. I think I've still got to get a bit there. I've got the run out, but I need to just wait for it to dry. Now I can still see where the run was. There's a darker colour here and a lighter colour where the paint is, but the run is almost gone. It's definitely going to, or it has definitely flattened the paint out, so like it's got less shine, but as it is, it's satin paint, so that's not bad. 600 grit. I'm going to work my way down to 800 next, and then I'll see how that goes, but I'd say I'll work my way to 12 or 1500, but I'm definitely getting the runs out. It's just a matter of how obvious it's going to be afterwards. Now I'll try, it's really hard to show, but I'll try to, so there you can see the paint runs that were there, and over here, can't. Now if I look really, really carefully, I can see where they were, and it's sort of through here. Again, you won't be able to see it, but this is obvious. This looks like spilt custard, whereas over here, it's flat. So I'm happy I'm getting it out. It's just a matter of whether it'll be visible. Daylight will tell the story. It's hard to see in this shed. But I'm going to keep going, because as I said, if worse comes to worse, I'll just repaint the quarter.